What we believe now is that the larger companies, the ones with massive market share, are the ones that are at greatest risk in terms of the acceleration of change that's going on in the marketplace. And innovation is not a thing. Our focus on it is that it comes from the edges, from within people who are innately creative and expressive. They have a deep, felt sense of what is needed and or desired. It doesn't come from research. It comes from that deep sense. And it's our plan today to remind you of some of the important things you already know, but perhaps have forgotten, either out of convenience, out of atrophy, corporate culture, or the fear that it might require you to make some changes that are uncomfortable. Jenna and I are often considered change agents when we come into large corporations, and the visionary CEOs appreciate it. Sometimes the senior management is a little uncomfortable, but at the end they all seem to appreciate it. One quick example is we worked with the Gerber Food Company, which has an 85% share in baby food in the U.S., and they were losing share and they didn't know why. So they hired us to help them understand the modern parent in the U.S., the shift in demographics, the shift in profile, to help them develop healthier food for the next generation of babies. They just didn't know what was going on.
This concept, which is kind of a comical view of things, is Dan and I are sometimes asked to come and work with people, and the first question they ask us is, help us think out of the box. And what we discovered is literally when we would go inside of both large and small companies, people were literally living and breathing and working in cubicles. And to me that was a significant indicator in that the whole structure was set up in people working, living, breathing, and cross-functioning within cubicles. So entrepreneurs generally, if you talk to a really great entrepreneur, they don't have any experience of a box. Danny and I, our whole 20 years of living, working together, by the way, we're a married couple also, and we're still standing and we still like each other. We have never had that experience. The sky's the limit for us. And so whenever we arrive at an organization, it's the first thing that we notice, and we recommend to them that they take those walls down immediately and actually think most deeply about that there never was a box. They were never in a box, and that they should think of that very deeply when they're considering new programs, new ideas, to actually not be thinking about thinking outside the box, but the box does not exist. So I'm going to just throw this out to you all and ask, what do you think this number is? Just take a stab at it. What do you think this number represents? And this is, I have to admit, this is U.S. based because we operate in the United States. But what do you think 90% represents? And just take a stab at it. No,
failure rate.
Say again?
Right. Failure rate, right.
Thank you, Richard.
Oh.
I can depend on you. This is, in the first 3 years of any beverage launch, we call it the Valley of Death. This is the failure rate in the first 3 years of launches that have happened in the United States. 90% of them fail. So, fortunately, Danny and I have been a part of the 10% many times as well, and today we're going to talk about what we've learned so you can be part of that 10%.
These are the logos and brands of companies that we've been actively involved with. As I mentioned, I joined a childhood friend and we built and grew Naked Juice, pioneering smoothies and fresh juice to the general population in the U.S. in the 1980s. And the premise there was authenticity. Our tagline was the freshest juice alive. We made everything to order, delivered the next day, no finished goods inventory whatsoever. One Natural Experience towards the left is an up-and-comer. It's a hot category in the U.S. It's coconut water. 6-7 years ago it didn't exist. Now it's about a $60 million category. They expect it to be $100 million this year. Pepsi made a minority investment into one just this past year. And the interesting thing there is it's what we call positive hydration. We can thank Peter for that yesterday, but that's the emphasis. Palm Wonderful below that, I think many of you know, and we're here in Turkey where pomegranates are so popular. Janet and I spent 3.5 years as senior advisors to the Resnicks, which own Palm Wonderful and Fiji Water. Odwalla, up and to the right, is a similar product to Naked, again a smoothie company. This one's owned by Coke, again a several $100 million brand. And they such brand loyalty and such integrity in the company that even when they had an E. coli problem and a child died from drinking a wallet in the 90s, they were so forthright in owning up to their mistake and dealing with it the correct way that the loyalty of the consumer base did not waver, which is a remarkable story. Tazo Tea, the bottom right, they call it the reinvention of tea. This was a pioneering brand that we helped. We managed all of their international business from their launch until their sale of Starbucks 5 years later. And but the truth is, what was successful for these brands then wouldn't necessarily translate now. And I think it's important to recognize that just because it was successful then, conditions now dictate other things are required to be successful. But what they all had is they were real, they gained trust, they had fun, and they connected with their consumer.
This is meant, obviously, to be a provocative question to the audience because Danny's and our role is not to come in as know-it-alls. And so this is usually the first question that we want answered is, what's not working for you? And we leave it in those most broadest terms because when you actually ask this question to a group of people, you'd be remarkably surprised with what comes up.